In this video, I'm going to show you how to fix your hoarse voice and give you tips to take care of your voice at all times. So let's get right to it. Hey, and welcome to Music Space, where we help working musicians just like you learn how to quickly and easily make a living with your craft. So if you're new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. So vocal hoarseness is something that even professional singers deal with from time to time. And there's a lot of reasons why the voice gets hoarse, but it usually comes down to one of two reasons. Usually it's either because of excessive use of the voice through singing and talking loud or screaming or shouting, or just the general lack of care of the vocal cords. The thing is, with musicians, your voice is your instrument, and when it's also your money maker, you have to go above and beyond the commonplace, vocal care sort of routines. You have to avoid certain things more than others, and you have to exercise a more rigorous routine in your vocal care. Now, there are different types of vocal hoarseness, and we won't get into the types here, but the type that you have is going to dictate the amount of time that it takes for your vocal cords to heal. So for example, if you have chronic hoarseness where you tend to be hoarse all the time, generally speaking, that type of hoarseness takes a little bit longer than just a normal, I kind of got an itch in my throat, kind of scratchy throat kind of hoarseness type of thing. So again, it's just going to dictate how long it's going to take that voice to recover and heal. But the good news is that the most common types of vocal hoarseness that we get can be healed pretty quickly and easily with the right vocal care. Now let's get this out of the way first. If you're watching this right now and your voice is currently hoarse and you have to perform or sing within the next 24 hours, chances are that your vocal cords are not going to be completely healed and restored by then, but they can be significantly improved within that time frame. And I'm going to give you some tips to make sure that that happens in case you need to sing, sometime soon and you need to heal your voice. So let's jump right into it. Now, right before we jump into that, if you're getting value out of this video so far, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe button and the like button on this video. That lets me know that you really appreciate this content, and it lets me know what type of content to make for you in the future. All right, so the first thing you need to be doing is resting and sleeping. Now, this is really important. If your voice is hoarse right now, you really need to be resting your voice. You need to not be talking much. And if you're talking at all, you need to be talking at very low volumes, but even that needs to be at a bare minimum. Your voice needs that time to heal and recuperate. So if you're talking a lot, and especially if you're talking at loud volumes and even moderate volumes for long periods of time, that's going to work against your voice healing. Again, you really need to be focused on not using your voice much, if at all, and you need to be getting some sleep. And with your sleep, you don't need to be sleeping under direct streams of air like ceiling fans and windows and vents and things like that next to your bed. You need to steer away from those things as much as possible. Now, some of those things are practical issues. Your bed may be by a window or something like that, and you can't really do much about it, but just do everything you can to limit that direct stream of air that's hitting your vocal cords or your throat or your nasal cavities while you sleep. Getting sufficient rest and sleep is sort of the first line of defense in preventing your vocal cords and your hoarseness from getting worse, and it puts you on that path to healing really quickly. Now, the next thing you need to be doing is keeping heat on your voice. You really need to be keeping your voice as warm as possible at all times. This is one of the reasons I mentioned in the last tip about staying away from direct streams of air like ceiling fans and things like that. It's because that cool air hits your voice and it can make your hoarseness worse. Now, usually keeping your voice warm and hot, involves drinking hot teas and things like that. And the type of teas that you want to get are herbal teas. So teas like chamomile, peppermint, ginger, these types of teas are really good for healing the vocal cords and the throat and keeping the throat warm. Now, my favorite tea for this is called slippery elm tea, better known as organic throat coat tea. And I'll drop a link to that in the description of this video, so make sure you check that out. But basically, you want to be sipping on some warm tea as frequently as you can. In a 24-hour period, you really should be shooting for about 3 or 4 cups of hot tea throughout the day, preferably more, but generally 3 or 4 is enough, especially when combined with some of the tips that I'm giving you here today. So just make sure you're doing what you need to do to keep your voice warm at all times. Now, the next thing you need to be doing is staying hydrated at all times. It is extremely important that when you're hoarse to not let your vocal cords and things like that dry out. What happens a lot of times is when you're hoarse, and especially when you're using the tips that I'm giving here, like not speaking and speaking at lower volumes and things like that, mucus tends to build up on the back of the throat. So what helps is hydrating, fresh water, keeping that mucus flowing through your body so that it doesn't get caked up in the back of your throat, sort of making that situation and that hoarseness worse. And if you're drinking lots of tea, like I mentioned in the last tip, you're probably okay with being hydrated, but it's still a good idea to add some fresh water in there every now and then as well. Just make sure you're staying away from things like ice cold water and, really cold, chilly water. Anything room temperature and slightly warmer is probably really good. Just make sure that it's not, irritating your throat or anything like that, like drinking it directly after you drink some hot tea and then drink some, room temperature water. That can be the contrast between those temperatures can irritate your throat. So just sort of space them out. Like, again, you're trying to keep your voice warm and you don't want to do something like drink some hot tea or warm tea and warm your voice up and then drink some room temperature water to cool it right down. You want to space those things out. Now, the next thing you need to be focused on when your voice is hoarse is hygiene. Simply put, you have to keep a clean mouth. One way that hoarseness happens, and especially that hoarseness is, exacerbated, is through bacteria. So you really need to be doing things like making sure you brush your teeth at least twice a day and after you eat. Brush your teeth after every meal so that, none of the food or anything like that that may be stuck in your teeth or anything like that sort of, irritates your throat. And also food left in your teeth and things like that can build up plaque and other types of things in your mouth that can irritate that hoarseness. So you want to rid your mouth of those types of things after you eat. You need to be using a good toothpaste that has, some healing properties to it. And I recommend using a toothpaste with the compound xylitol in it. And if you don't know what that is, just do a quick Google search on it, but it's really great and it really helps with things like dry mouth and keeping bacteria out of your mouth, both things that you want to be focused on when you're hoarse. Now, personally, I use a toothpaste called Spry, which has the compound xylitol in it, and I'll drop a link to it in the description of this video so you can check that out. But just make sure you're keeping your mouth as clean as possible at all times. Now, another thing you really need to be focused on when you're hoarse is avoidance. There are a lot of things that you really need to be avoiding when your voice is hoarse. You need to be avoiding certain foods that irritate the throat, like spicy foods and things like that. You need to be avoiding foods that give you things like acid reflux or hiccups. So again, this means that if you find yourself having some acid reflux or hiccups or things like that after you eat certain foods, you really need to be avoiding those at all costs. It's also best that you avoid foods like dairy and coffee. Now, in some cases with hoarseness, coffee can be okay if you're drinking it straight black with nothing in it, maybe a drop or two of stevia or something like that to sweeten it. But all of the other things like the milk products and things like that that you may add to coffee, all of that stuff is going to irritate your throat and irritate your hoarseness and make it worse and prevent you from healing quickly. And even in the cases where you can do things like drink coffee, I would put a limit on it to maybe 1 cup a day max. And again, using something like stevia to sweeten your coffee and your teas, your hot teas that you're drinking is okay. Generally, stevia is not going to be something that is going to mess with your throat, especially if you do it in like the liquid form. And I'll drop the link to the one I use, the stevia I use in the description of this video. So be sure to jump down and check that out. But that's something that you can do to sweeten your coffees and your teas. But the thing to get here is that you really need to be staying away from foods and drinks that give you things like hiccups and acid reflux. As you know, when you hiccup, that's something that can, you hiccup sort of in your throat and it can kind of hurt your throat and irritate your throat. Same thing with acid reflux. Those things can keep you from healing your hoarseness really quickly and in some cases can do permanent damage. So you need to be avoiding those things. So question for you. What tips do you have for vocal hoarseness, or what do you do when your voice is hoarse? What type of remedies do you use? Jump down in the comments and let me know. I definitely want to hear about those. And listen, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope it helps if you're dealing with vocal hoarseness. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And here are some other videos that you can check out right now.